I was never going to have children. I was never going to be a mother. I love kids. I have always loved kids. I've been a babysitter since I was old enough to change a diaper, which in my dysfunctional reality was quite young. I loved coaching kids and teaching kids. I loved my nieces and nephews and relatives. I was the favorite grown up relative at every Christmas Eve of my young adult life. Barbie's here. So, in the 227 episodes I've already recorded, number 228 finds me sitting on my porch. I often talk about how I don't like people to tell me to be quiet or to tell me what to do. And I have spent my life actually doing things I have not wanted to do to please people that were never going to be pleased. One of the biggest things I've gotten out of my, entrepreneurial coaching connection with Carolina is how to ascertain that what I'm doing is chasing the person who will never love me while I ignore the people who do. It's interesting. This comes back again and again in my life. But right now, I'm thinking about the mother piece. I was never going to have kids. I was never going to be a mother. So when I wrote this book, Motherland, which I'm going to show you here, it's my memoir, I'm often asked, how did I pick the title? The most recent person to ask me this is Logan Crawford, who you have seen more than once on TV shows and things. He's a character actor. I believe he's most well known for Chicago Blue, perhaps. He works for the Global Book Network, and this is a part of Atticus Publishing, and they support independent authors. And so I received an email, would I like to be on this show? I will include the link on the episode page. So whenever I'm interviewed, it all comes back. The process of writing, the conversations with Virginia, what we had to edit out, what we had to rework, what we had to skim over, what we had to embellish. It's a huge process, and it always leaves me feeling a bit befuddled. But Logan's big question was the title, Motherland. What does that even mean? How did you come up with that title? And I think I came up with this title, with the help from Virginia, quite frankly, but she and I both agreed that motherhood isn't an experience that you can necessarily paint a picture of, because it's more than what you see. It's what you hear, it's what you smell, it's what you feel, it's what you touch, it's what you taste. And it's different all the time. Who you're mothering changes the landscape. Why you're mothering or what you're addressing changes the weather. The age of the person you're mothering alters the setting. Motherhood and being a mother is a vast country. I look at it as big as like China or the United States or Russia or India, or as big as a continent, Australia. There's warm climates in Motherland. There's frozen tundra in Motherland. There are droughts and floods. Being a mother is never the same. And I've talked a lot about right now how I seem to be mothering everybody. One of my biggest flaws, if we're going to spill the tea about Barb's imperfections, is that I can hold on to things that I know are going to happen and just wait for them to be fixed, knowing they won't be fixed. And then I just walk around pissed off all the time. So when you're in a relationship with somebody, you don't want to mother them. So, like a romantic relationship or a partnership. Kenny does a million things right, but he needs a lot of guidance. He wakes up, every day is a clean slate. He reminds me of sometimes Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates. He wakes up and it's a new day. What do we do now? And so if I wait for him to do certain things that we've talked about 5,000 times, knowing full well he probably won't, not out of malice, but because he just doesn't remember, I get angry. And so I've decided now, since I now live in a house with my mother and my two children and my partner, that I am everybody's mother. And so rather than be indignant and impose my expectations on everybody, I am going to look at what I want, and I'm going to facilitate a reality that helps me fulfill those needs. Now, let me be clear, not selfish. I'm not going to say, I want, gimme, gimme, gimme. I want to sit around while everyone does everything. Not at all. I want this podcast to be more than what it is, which is a podcast that a handful of people listen to. I don't spend any time on it other than sitting in front of my computer talking to you. If I'm going to invest in a fine editor who does wonderful things for me, then I should do my part. I should create a life and structure a life that gives me the time to do what I need to do. And I don't. I just sit around in my anger looking at my disastrous, messy house. So I have to change that. That's me. So I mother Gracie and I mother Jack, two very different mothering experiences. I mother my mother. This is tricky. I have to remind myself that little by little, people lose control of themselves. A friend of mine fell recently and he has some spine issues and he's just had surgery and he can finally move his legs again. But for about 2 months, he's been immobile. He has to be moved with a Hoya lift and everything has to be done for you. Everything. Not fun. So I need to remind myself with my mom that little by little, she loses her independence, her ability to go up and down stairs, her ability to decide where she wants to put her orange juice in the fridge, how many articles of clothing she wants to put in her laundry. All of these things now affect other people. Little by little, she's losing any sense of autonomy she has. That just has to suck. I have to look at Jack, who just takes it all in. He watches and listens. He's so tender and he owns it. When we're struggling, he feels like it's his fault or that it's him. And of course it isn't. I have to look at Kenny, who very much wants the right things to happen. At the same time, he very much does not want to change. So that can be tricky, can it? And then there's me. Who's mothering me? I do not want my mother to mother me. That's a contentious relationship. I have a good relationship with my mother and I have my mother. I'm grateful for that. That's never lost on me. But I don't have a mother. I don't have a caretaker. I remember years ago, I worked for a principal named Clint and he had a heart transplant. So he had had several heart attacks, all of which almost killed him. They had a baby that had a neurological issue when he was born. And all of these things were happening. So here's a mother with a husband in a hospital in one city and a sick kid in a hospital 2 hours in the other direction, and then 2 toddlers at home and a full-time job and all of this. And I remember at the time, they were reminiscing about these details. And I asked Jane, who took care of you? And she just smiled. Basically told me she found ways to take care of herself. So I went for a reading, a psychic reading. I have a medium that I go to named Carolyn Rose. She's fantastic. I'll include her contact info as well. If you don't believe in these things, that's fine. Just listen to me and pshaw and shake your head and, yell things at the podcast. I don't care. I have had intense connections with people on the other side, all different people in my life. This reading I had a couple of weeks ago, it came out of nowhere. It was like a last minute. And normally my visits with Molly are cheerful and fun and that sort of thing. Oh, I'm also the mother to a dead girl and a dead boy. So I mother my mother, I mother my alive children, I mother my dead children, I mother my husband. Who's my mother? So in the perfect example of parentification of a child, there are times now, given that Molly's on the other side, that I ask her for help. What do I do, Molly? And then I feel immediately guilty because I was very parentified as a child and it was not helpful in my overall development. Molly had a lot of words for me. She had a lot of words for me to stop enabling people to treat me like crap. She had a lot of words for me to pay attention, that some of the people in my life were taking advantage of my good nature, not listening to my requests for autonomy and help, hearing me, but not listening to me, or listening but not hearing, one or the other, however it goes. I also had a visit from Kathleen, who is the superintendent that I hired, that I loved, that came to our district and gave us the last 5 years of her life. That was a surprise. And she had a lot of similar things to say. What's nice about hearing from somebody that's the same age or older is there's so much more shared experience. I was Molly's mom, and her experience here on planet Earth was 13 years long. If you include 9 months in the belly and 1 month after being 13, then she was here for 13 years and 10 months. That's about it. Kathleen apologized with a laugh and a smile for my current reality regarding the school board. She told me to take care of myself and to endeavor not to take things personally. It's very hard not to take things personally when you know they're personal, right? I refuse to be a mother on the school board. I get treated like a mother sometimes, though. I get treated like a mother whose children are trying to insist she go into a home, right? I get talked down to quite a bit. That can be difficult. And I don't think they know they're doing it. I think ageism is a huge symptom of this current generation. When I say this current generation, anyone between the ages of like 20 and 40. So that's a 20-year span, but very, very ageist. I had this incredible reading. And basically, the message was that I needed to learn how to mother myself, be my mother, mother me first. That was interesting because immediately my thoughts go to all the places and ways I've failed as a mother. Let's start with baby Gordy. I didn't know I was pregnant. We facilitated the end of that pregnancy because he was so very, very sick and he died within like an hour and a half of contractions. So maybe if I had taken more aggressive health choices to keep him alive 9 months in my belly and then gone through whatever I might have had to go through to keep him alive when he was born, maybe that would have made me a better mother. Now, I know right now his sweet little soul says, no, 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 it was just right. And I know that his tiny little body saved the lives of several other babies. So does that make me a good mother? I don't know. It was his surprise pregnancy that made me go from no vacancy in this baby hotel to I want to be a mother. And the feeling of a baby moving in your belly is one of the best parts of being a woman and being able to grow a baby in your tummy. It's fantastic. Then I mothered Gracie. She came along next. And so was I a good mother to Gracie? I don't know. Gracie and Molly are kind of lumped in together. Full disclosure, I repeated a lot of behaviors that my mother repeated. I had somebody else in my life that took me away from my home. I let his wishes and desires dictate my actions. I let him convince me that I was always the problem, that it was never him or the situation that he was a part of it and he created. So was I a good mother to Gracie and Molly? In a million ways, yes. And I think if I had Gracie sitting next to me here, which I will again soon, by the way, she would say, no, Mom, you're a great mom. You're a great mom who made mistakes. I know that Molly prefaced all of her stern, harsh words with me at this last reading by reminding me how much she loved me and that I was doing the best I could. And she understood now how important it was for me to take care of everybody. I just had a flashback memory of being in the middle of a really bad asthma attack, maybe at age 8 or 9. And I was babysitting. And so picking up and taking care of John and Jody, they were called then, and having to sit down and wheeze. There were no inhalers invented then. You just wheezed, praying for my parents to get home so I could go to the hospital and get fixed. They came home drunk, of course, and I didn't get fixed. Actually, that was one of the nights I was abused. That was a bad night. But I guess my thought was that I've been mothering for a long time. Mother everybody. Now I'm mothering Jack. And I know that there are some things I do much better. There are some things I don't do well at all. And it reminds me that I just am who I am. Full disclosure, we are who we are. It is very difficult to change ingrained behaviors and patterns. However, difficult doesn't mean impossible. So I'm going to mother myself. I'm going to put my oxygen mask on me and truly breathe in the oxygen before I mother others. I am a famous New Year's Eve resolution person. What are your resolutions? And you write them all down. And for me, that I don't even make it out of January typically. So in looking at some work around goal setting tends to be outcome based. I want to break 5 minutes in the mile. And then you work back from your outcome, which for something as specific as that and as performance based as that probably makes sense. But in my life now, where, yes, I might have a CrossFit competition, or I might have a bank balance I want to endeavor to get, or I might have a weight in the weight room I want to get, or a number of podcast listeners, like, of course, I have outcome-based goals, Molly B Foundation money, those sorts of things. But I read an article which I cannot reference, so I'm going to keep it very vague and make sure you know it's something I read and I didn't make it up in my head, talking about goals being much more effective if they're process-oriented, not outcome oriented, because the minute you realize you're not going to reach your outcome, you feel like you're a failure. So I started to look at that. Like, okay, what is it I want and what processes in my life can I change? And so I made a list of the areas in my life, my physical fitness, mental well-being, the fact that I don't read anymore. I haven't read a book in a year and a half, a long time. Maybe a couple of books, but not really. My house, organizing my house and getting rid of a lot of stuff, really promoting camps and activities for the Molly B Foundation. I have all of these goals that I have had for years and years now. Jack will be 5, which means this podcast will be 5 in September. If I knew 5 years ago that I would have less listeners now than I had my first year, I don't know what I would think of myself. That would upset me, I think, logically so. So change the process, right? Don't put some random number up there and expect that to be the catalyst that changes the process. Make the process changes your goals. So I looked at the month of January and my thoughts were, okay, I could quit drinking and do the whole, I'm going to, be abstinent from alcohol, but I'm in a place right now where that will likely be a failure. I just don't feel like trying that hard. So I don't drink. 99% of the time, I don't. Last night was the first school board meeting of the year, and boy, did I want to go to a bar and have a drink or two, a big, giant pomegranate martini. I didn't. I came home. I made the right choice. And this morning when I woke up at 5, I was happy about that. Process. So a lot of my initial goals are to get up every day at 5. And I have a list of things to do that are vague. Spend the first hour on mobility and or cardio and physically, emotionally waking up. So I'm working on my feet right now, on my knees. I swing my legs and stretch my hips while I sip coffee. I do not turn the TV on while I do this. I leave it, I just go by the Christmas tree lights and the Molly B lights. I do a whole bunch of mobility around my hips, and then I try to get up without using my hands. Now, maybe first thing in the morning isn't the best time to do this, but I used to be able to get up off the floor without using my hands, and my hips and knees are so bound up right now that I can't. That doesn't sit well with me. That's my process. My process is every day to work on the mobility of my lower body so that I can get up off the floor without using my hands. I can sit up just fine. I can lie on my back and sit up, but I can't crisscross applesauce my feet and get onto my knees anymore. And I can't even sort of get onto one knee. Like, I can't do it. Not good. I can do it if I use my hand. So the process. So my goal is to get up off the floor every morning 5 times with as little help from my hands as possible, knowing that if I do this every day, eventually one day I'll be able to get up without using my hands. And then I'll do that every day. Another thing that came to mind in analyzing this was when I did 100 burpees a day for every day that Molly was alive. So it's all of April and a big chunk of May. I didn't do them all at once. I didn't go outside and do 100 burpees in a row. I just made sure by the end of the day I had done 100 burpees. That's a process goal. It's something I'm going to process through on a daily basis. So here we are in January. Another big message in my reading was in the process of mothering myself, I need to create a schedule and a daily reality that brings me happiness. Molly suggested I get out of my house, like live someplace else for a while. Take Jack and go on a trip, just me and Jack. Go separate myself from all of it, from the stresses of school board, from the stresses of my mother, from the stresses of the messy house, from the stresses of Kenny. Gracie's heading off to France. Grab Jack and go to France for a month. No, I could do any of these things. I don't know that I would want to be by myself in France with Jack while Gracie was busy at Disney. I think that I have a lot going on, and, I'm happy to make it work here. Molly, in her all-knowing reality now, reminds me that if I stay here, right here where I am, that it will be very hard for me to make changes. Molly also really wants me to be done with school board. And again, she can see the bigger picture and the emotional toll that it takes on me that other people can't. That's a whole different issue. If you're not local, then none of this will make sense or even be interesting to you. How do I mother myself? Well, process goals. Make sure every day to have one really good, healthy meal. That's an easy process goal. I'm not getting myself a weight to weigh. When I'm home, I really like eating cold chicken and veggies for lunch. So I've done that now. Since I've set these goals today's Tuesday. Yay. So I'm 2 days in, right? Okay. But these are things that I can easily do. I can look at the food in my house and create good meals. One good, healthy, single ingredient meal every day. I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. So, a banana, peanut butter, rice cake, protein shake, not difficult. So a healthy lunch is nice. And Kenny makes delicious dinners. Process goals. What does all this have to do with living in Motherland? Well, if I'm mothering myself, this is a role that I have never taken on as a mother. I have never really taken good care of myself. I have found things that I love and immersed myself in the passion of those things. My love for CrossFit was as intense and all-consuming as my love for running was. Two very, very similar relationships. I had to do it every day. Through participating in those things, I take good care of myself. CrossFit probably had the longest, most far-reaching impact on my health because of my dietary choices. So I'm 62, and I'm a bit of a unicorn. I'm a 62-year-old who can still put her toddler boy, almost 5, to her breast and milk comes out. TMI, I know, but you know what? That's pretty amazing. So yes, I'm a 62-year-old woman. My next decade will start with a 7. My body tells me this in many ways. So it's January. It's the beginning of the Gregorian calendar year. This is when everyone makes these big resolutions. My new year as a Baha'i, a member of the Baha'i faith, is March 20th, Jack's birthday. Nowruz, the new year, first day of spring. Things come alive, right? My process will be to arrive at the Baha'i New Year, at Nowruz, in a more favorable physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state. I think I can do that. I need to promote the book more, Motherland. Not because it's some amazing book, but because it's full of things, experiences, honesty, uncomfortable words on both the death of Molly and the birth of Jack that I think are helpful in other things. If you haven't read it, buy it and read it. All the money supports the Molly B Foundation. It's a good book. Actually, Google local authors who have, in your area, search for local authors that have written memoirs and see what people write about. I think we learn the biggest lessons from other invisible normal people. Take a look at the interview on the Global Book Network. It's on Roku TV, it's on YouTube. I've had a couple of people reach out because they came upon it in their own social media scrolling. So I've addressed how am I going to take care of myself physically and sort of mentally and socially. Molly B Foundation and A Thousand Tiny Steps podcast. So here's where I'm at a fork in the road. I've resolved my fork around the Molly B Foundation by making it much more event oriented in terms of how I share it with people, how I bring money in, and what I offer to do so. I now am really committed to running camps. I'm really good with kids. It's another way I mother. So I'm doing a theater camp this summer. So Barb's track camp, Barb's musical theater camp. I actually think I'm going to try to put together a Barb's adventure camp and just pick 5 places to take a busload of kids toward the end of summer. I think it'd be great fun. And that's a way that I can support the foundation, make it well known, and bring in money and offer a service. The golf tournament was amazing. So I feel good about my shift in thinking there. But my podcast and blog, I haven't written a blog. I have not written a new blog in like 4 months, 5 months. Why do I have an email and a blog if I'm not going to do it? I've been reposting a lot of things I'd already written, which I think is important as well. The last 5 blog posts have been stuff I wrote in 2013. It's an easy way out, and it's not a healthy way out. I'm not doing something that provided me a lot of health. When do I carve out time to write? I cram it in. I cram everything in. I'm sitting in a recliner in the middle of chaos trying to get something done so I can say, good, I checked it off my list. The podcast, A Thousand Tiny Steps, the name of it really, really does sort of indicate a story with a beginning point and an ending point, and starting at the end and tracing it back to where it started. I get it. And that was my life story. But I've told it. I've told my life story. And while I'm going in depth now and giving the rest of the story to 2 or 3 pretty traumatic times in my life, I'm ready to make a shift here as well. I've really enjoyed interviewing people because there are so many people with amazing stories to tell. So I'm thinking of creating a podcast that always has a guest, or maybe 2 out of 3 episodes is a guest, and really, really narrowing the focus on the theme of the guests. Not only one topic, because I lose a ton of people, but I don't know. I'm going around and around in a redefining time in the podcast. I told Molly in my reading that I thought I should just quit. Like, I'm not paying attention to it. Why bother? And she said, no, that I should keep doing it. So that leads me to believe that there's some silver lining at the end of it somehow. I don't know. So it's January 6th, Insurrection Day. Not a good day in American history, recent American history. I'm sitting on my porch, which I love, on a cold, cold winter day. It's warm here because I have space heaters and such. I'm recording my podcast episode with a big glare behind me, and I don't care. I'm shaking it up on school board. I just have to be myself. I took a lot of heat for comparing our school board to the cafeteria, the Mean Girls cafeteria table, but it's such an accurate comparison that I can't let it go, and I won't. It's not an insult. It's an unbelievably accurate observation of how it works. That could be a whole episode by itself, but it would only interest people in Concord, I think. I don't know. So here I sit at a fork in the road. I really do want to commit more time to writing. I really want my podcast to be more successful. And I really want to spend more time with people in front of me. So there I go. Lots of things I want. No idea how to make them happen. Motherland. I think right now, if I had to say where I am in Motherland, I'm on a prairie that looks the same no matter which way I turn. There's no horizon other than where the gray sky meets the gray grass. Like, I feel like I lack perspective. I lack a background, a horizon line. I'm struggling here. But that's me spilling the tea. So in the coming weeks, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'll have Gracie on again, probably before she heads off to France. I think I'm going to have a podcast interview with Jack. I think he'd be a lot of fun, maybe just a few minutes of it. And I have some guests lined up, some folks that have gone through incredible struggles that are very, very willing to come talk. But I'm not sure that A Thousand Tiny Steps is the right name. I don't know. We'll see. A rebrand, a rebirth, a let's try again. So that's it. This is my all over the place first solo podcast episode recorded in 2026. And I hope as I go along, I manifest as I go along, I will feel better about all things in all areas, in all ways of my life. So you'll hear this on January 13th, lucky 13. So happy January, everybody. Motherland. country in which anyone that's had a child lives. Hey, wait, let me take that back. Because you could be a childless mother and mother a lot of people in your life. I was very mothering long before I gave birth to babies. But join me in Motherland, will you? I'm clueless. I'm aimless. So enjoy your January, everybody. Get back into good habits. Enjoy your sober January, your dry January, your moist January, whatever it is. Enjoy the gym that you'll go to for 1 month and pay for 6. Be good to yourself, though. And once you're good to you, be good to someone else. And as I always say, have a good day, everybody.
Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.